start today is in Little Caribbean. Little Caribbean is a neighborhood in Brooklyn. It's kind of a newer term. It's not an officially named area. What the neighborhood's actually called is East Flatbush, right? But since the neighborhood has such a large Caribbean population, a lot of people are now calling it Little Caribbean, and a lot of places do officially call it Little Caribbean. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go along Church Avenue. That's where we are now. So we go along Church Avenue, and then we're also going to go along Nostrand Avenue. So that's kind of the main section in here. But the Caribbean culture is all throughout the neighborhood. So you can go blocks this way, you know, blocks more west, blocks more east, blocks north and south, and you'll find Caribbean restaurants, Caribbean bars, Caribbean stores, Caribbean delis, everything like that for miles, right? So this is pretty much the largest enclave of people, immigrants from the West Indies in the United States, right? So out of any neighborhood in the US, in New York City or the US, this has the largest number of immigrants from the West Indies. Largely, the largest populations are Jamaican, Trinidadian, and Haitian. It seems like Haitian is pretty much the biggest one, but the rest are very large as well. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna travel through the neighborhood. We're gonna take a walk through those main corridors, Nostrand and Church Avenue. I'm gonna explain a little bit about the history of the neighborhood. I'm gonna explain a little bit of how to get here and where to go while you're here. So let's start. So how to get here? The 2 or 5 train will drop you off right here. So where we are now is the Church Avenue station, as you saw. So you could take the 2 or 5 station and it'll drop you off right in the middle of it. You could also get off at Newkirk Avenue, and then there's another one further north. So there's basically Beverly Road. So there's basically 3 stations that you can use to get here. The center, though, is the Church Avenue stop of the 2 and 5 train. You could also drive. As you can see, it's pretty hectic around here. I really wouldn't advise driving if you don't have to, just because parking could be really annoying. We're here on a Tuesday afternoon, but if you come on the weekend, it could be a lot more chaotic, a lot more hectic. So let's continue. So a little history of the neighborhood. So this area, East Flatbush, now known as Little Caribbean, most of the housing was developed in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So the neighborhood originally was mostly Jewish and Italian for most of its history, right? So since the 1960s, so that population remained kind of from the advent of the neighborhood being developed, and the reason it was developed is because the train lines were stretched out to this part of Brooklyn. So once the train lines were stretched out, that really allowed development in lots of parts of Brooklyn that were otherwise before rural. So most of the population stayed Italian and Jewish until about the 60s. That population started to move out. They started moving out to further out Brooklyn neighborhoods and early first suburbs, right? After that happened, a lot of West Indian immigrants started to move here. Originally, before the West Indian culture kind of took over, it was African American, right? So it stayed African American for about 15-20 years, and then the population started to become overwhelmingly West Indian or Caribbean. Now, what's the difference between African American and West Indian or Caribbean? So the difference is, even though both cultures are originally from Africa, right? You know your history. They're originally from Africa, right? But African Americans' descendants were in the present-day United States, right? And are usually, African Americans usually have been in the United States for many, many generations, right? So since the 1600s, 1700s, those centuries. Now, the West Indians or Caribbeans, right? They stopped in the Caribbean first, then came to the United States more in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, even until today. So the culture is a little different because they had a stopover in the Caribbean before arriving in America. So they're essentially immigrants, unlike African Americans, right? Although now they're technically African Americans because they're of African descent and live in America. Do you see the difference in the culture? So you're gonna see that more around here. So let's continue a little bit more. So as you can see around here, most of the businesses, the restaurants, the cafes, the delis, they cater to the Caribbean community, right? And you're gonna get that real, Caribbean feel. If you want to experience Caribbean culture, if you want to eat Caribbean food, you know, that jerk food, Guyanese, Trinidadian, that real authentic kind of Caribbean vibe, this is where you come in New York. Okay, so we're gonna keep going. I'm gonna show you down a little bit more on Flatbush. So originally we were on Church Avenue. Okay, so the center of it really is, not Flatbush, I'm sorry, Nostrand. So the center of it really is Church Avenue and Nostrand Avenue. Okay, so that was the subway station that we were at originally, that I showed you before how to get here. That drops you off smack in the center. But like I said, this vibe, this Caribbean vibe, goes on for many, many blocks in many directions. So, you know, make sure you explore it fully. You know, you don't have to be stuck to this couple blocks. This is just the highest concentration in this area.
Good monster.
So now you'll notice as you travel through the neighborhood, you will get a mix of, you know, your everyday stores, you know, your Subway, Burger King, McDonald's, things like that. But I'd say half or more of the businesses and the restaurants really do cater to the Caribbean community, and you can see that as you walk around. You know, I mean, it's really interesting and great how they maintain their culture. Okay, so we pretty much finished up the north side of Church Avenue. We're kind of finishing up the whole Church Avenue here. Oh wow, someone's barbecuing. So you can see over here, they actually put a sign above saying, you know, welcome to Little Caribbean. So they're really trying to kind of market this area as a Caribbean section and a Caribbean destination to visit when you're here in New York. It is very interesting. It's very colorful. I mean, like I said, this is the place to go if you want Caribbean food, Caribbean culture, things of that nature. You know, if you really want to get kind of a homegrown kind of real authentic Brooklyn neighborhood, definitely come here, definitely check it out. Okay guys, until next time, see ya.